Today we're unpacking a really fascinating reality straight from the world of psychology. You know, when we hear the word intelligence, it's incredibly tempting to instantly picture someone who's basically swallowed an encyclopedia, right? We all know the type, the person who absolutely dominates trivia night, spouts off random historical dates, or just seems to have memorized half of Wikipedia. But, well, psychology suggests something completely different. True intelligence? It isn't measured simply by the sheer amount of facts you cram into your head. Instead, it's revealed through the way you process the world around you. It's all about how you think, how you react to brand new ideas, and, maybe most importantly, whether you're actually willing to challenge your own deeply held beliefs. So we're going to look at 5 specific psychological traps that reveal how we might not be operating quite as intelligently as we think we are.
Okay, let's dive into this. Are you really as smart as you think? Now, look, this question isn't here to make you feel bad or judge you. Honestly, it's the exact opposite. This explainer is really designed to be a journey of self-reflection. We all have blind spots. Every single one of us falls into cognitive traps. So the goal here today is just to look inward, be completely honest with ourselves, and evaluate how our minds actually work when we're faced with challenges or new information. Like, are we genuinely as adaptable and self-aware as we believe we are?
To start, we really have to break down a major societal misconception. See, society often rewards this idea that being smart means knowing a vast treasure trove of facts, winning every single debate, and basically never being wrong. But psychology tells us a totally different story. It shows that intelligence is actually a very dynamic process. It's about your adaptability. It's how you react when someone actually proves you wrong. It's having that mental flexibility to challenge your own assumptions. And ironically enough, as the research points out, one of the absolute clearest signs of lower intelligence is assuming you've already got everything figured out.
Number 1. The trap of certainty.
And this brilliantly illustrates the divide. You know, you might think that being absolutely certain about your views is a sign of a really strong, intelligent mind. But in psychology, operating with absolute certainty is actually a massive red flag. It points straight to lower mental flexibility. Just think about how a rigid thinker reacts to being challenged in a meeting, right? They immediately go on the defensive, completely assuming their very first instinct was flawless. Meanwhile, truly intelligent thinkers are over there actively wondering, wait, could I actually be wrong about this? They frequently question their own conclusions, which basically leaves the door wide open for new information to enter.
Actually, there's a very specific scientific term for this: overconfidence bias. This is a super well-documented psychological phenomenon. It basically happens when someone's limited knowledge on a subject magically creates this false sense of total certainty. Because they don't know enough to realize just how incredibly complex a topic is, they think it's super simple, and therefore they are entirely sure they're right. The takeaway here? If you almost never doubt yourself, there is a really good chance you're overlooking critical information. A lack of self-doubt isn't some kind of superpower. It's honestly just a cognitive blind spot.
Moving on to number 2. The danger of stubbornness.
So there's this deeply ingrained myth in our society that changing your mind is a form of weakness, like it's some sort of intellectual surrender. But psychology completely flips that idea on its head. Changing your mind isn't a failure at all. It's practically a hallmark of growth. Intelligent people act almost like chameleons. They instantly adjust their beliefs when convincing new evidence pops up. They value the actual truth way more than their own ego. Rigid thinkers, on the other hand, do the exact opposite. Think about someone doubling down on a terrible financial investment just because they don't want to admit they made a rookie mistake. They'll cling to their opinions, even when the facts are staring them right in the face, just to protect their pride. It's simple. If you can't update your beliefs, you literally cannot grow.
Which brings us to number 3, the danger of oversimplifying.
Look, real-world situations, human behavior, global events, they all inherently contain incredibly complex layers and deep nuance. Genuine intelligence recognizes that life is rarely just black or white. Now, what's really interesting about this is the specific language we use when we try to force those complicated issues into neat, tiny little boxes. I'm talking about words like always, never, or saying things like, well, it's obvious. Psychology suggests that leaning heavily on these absolute terms really reflects shallow thinking. Think about someone claiming the solution to a massive, highly complicated economic crisis is just obvious. No way. When you reduce a complex, gray area topic into a simple, absolute statement, you aren't actually solving the problem. You're just ignoring the difficult layers that require real brain power to understand.
Let's look at number 4. The curiosity deficit.
We often treat curiosity as this childhood trait that we're supposed to outgrow, right?
kind of like playing with toy blocks. But scientifically speaking, the presence of curiosity is actually one of the most powerful and enduring traits linked to true intelligence. The reality is, the exact moment you believe you know enough, your learning starts to slow down. People who just stop asking why or how end up permanently stuck with this very surface-level understanding of the world. Psychology shows us over and over that curiosity is basically the fuel that keeps the brain learning and expanding. Failing to ask questions means you've completely closed the door to new information. You've essentially locked yourself inside whatever you already know, and man, that is a massive barrier to intellectual growth.
Finally, number 5, the blame game.
Now, to be totally fair here, psychology does acknowledge that outside circumstances absolutely matter. Sometimes things really are completely out of your control. However, constantly placing the responsibility on everyone else for your own problems, that exposes a severe lack of self-awareness. The reason this blame game is so incredibly detrimental ties directly into a critical psychological concept called metacognition. This is simply the ability to deeply reflect on your own thoughts and actions. It's essentially thinking about your own thinking. If you're constantly blaming your Wi-Fi router for missing a deadline when, let's be honest, you actually just procrastinated by watching videos for 3 hours, well, you are entirely skipping metacognition. And if you never examine your own internal processes, you completely miss the opportunity to learn from your mistakes and, actually improve.
So let's wrap this up by rethinking true intelligence. The source material from psychology makes it abundantly clear that true intellect just isn't about looking smart to the people around you. It isn't some sort of performance. It's about critical thinking, adaptability, and having the openness to question your own mind. So the absolute crucial point here is that these 5 psychological roadblocks actively need to be avoided. Assuming you're always right, stubbornness, or clinging to a belief just to save face, oversimplifying deeply nuanced problems, losing your curiosity, and constantly blaming others instead of practicing a little self-reflection. These aren't just minor character quirks, guys. They actively limit the way you think and hold back your overall success in life.
Because here is the kicker. Sometimes, the strongest sign of low intelligence is never realizing it's there. It's literally the ultimate blind spot. If you lack the mental flexibility to question yourself, you're never going to realize that your mental flexibility is lacking in the first place. Look, it is completely normal for human beings to be fallible, to make mistakes, and to have all sorts of cognitive biases. The truly smart move is to just accept that reality and engage in continuous self-monitoring.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative question pulled straight from our psychological analysis today. Which of these habits do you notice in yourself? Seriously, don't shy away from the answer. Recognizing a tiny touch of stubbornness, or a moment of oversimplifying something, or maybe catching yourself playing the blame game? That recognition itself is an act of metacognition. That is literally the very beginning of true intelligence. Take a moment to really evaluate your own mind today, stay actively curious, and whatever you do, never stop asking questions.